Cross-party group of MPs claims female activists imprisoned in Saudi Arabia experience conditions that could be defined as torture under both international and Saudi law. It comes as Britain is to take part in joint military exercises with the country. The Royal Navy will carry out drills lasting 5 days, with the Saudi military starting this Sunday. But critics have attacked Saudi Arabia's involvement in the Yemen war, which has seen devastating civilian casualties, as well as Britain's supply of weaponry to the Gulf state. Shadow Defence Secretary Neil Griffith has said it would be morally irresponsible to go ahead with the plans. Well, that's as the UK is criticised for pushing for sanctions on Venezuela, but not treating Saudi Arabia in the same way. Foreign Secretary Jeremy Hunt has defended Britain's position, saying it does push the Saudis on its human rights record. But that's as Foreign Office Minister Sir Alan Duncan attends a meeting convened by Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau to discuss new ways of supporting the self-declared interim president of Venezuela, Juan Guaido. Well, for more on this, I'm now joined by the head of Birmingham's Stop the War Coalition, Salma Yaqoob. Salma, hello to you.
Hi, good evening.
So is there really a case of double standards here? Because they're both bad regimes, but Venezuela is a humanitarian crisis, isn't it, rather than simply an authoritarian government?
Well, I think double standards is a mild terminology. I mean, this is beyond hypocrisy. The world knows what the Saudi regime is about. Despite all the politicking, despite all the well-paid lobbying, I think people around the world know very well it's a dictatorship. There is not even a pretense of democracy. The fact that we were supposed to celebrate that women are now allowed to drive a few hours a day as some indication of openness and liberalism, it is patronising to women and the idea of freedom and liberalism. And yet we have a government here in the United Kingdom, and I'm quite ashamed that on the one hand they moralise and talk about human rights, democracy, women's rights, etc., and yet have more than a cosy relationship with Saudi Arabia. Just in the last 5 years alone, over £5 billion worth of arms deals. So I don't accept at all when Jeremy Hunt says he's pushing the Saudi regime when it comes to human rights. In fact, not only are the Saudis responsible for their, obviously, their own atrocities in the war in Yemen, but to our shame here in the United Kingdom, we too now share in that complicity because we're the ones providing the weapons to allow the Saudis to do what they're doing.
So what are your thoughts then on the fact we're supporting an opposition leader in Venezuela, where we're seeing a country where millions of people are fleeing and so many are starving due to an oppressive regime? So what are your thoughts on what Britain's doing there?
Well, the fact is, in Venezuela, we've known for decades that the US has wanted to intervene. There was a US-backed coup in 2002. So this is not new. This is going back decades, back, the 70s and 80s, where in, for example, Chile, we had a democratic government overturned. So the whole history of military dictatorships, which are backed by the West, and who actually bring misery to the populations in countries like in Latin America. So this is a really sad moment when we have had a period where people have been enthused, people got engaged, and a difference was made under Chavez. But now we have a situation, and again, frankly, I just find it beyond bizarre that you have a situation where somebody didn't stand in an election, never mind win an election, and yet is being recognised as the official leader.
But then, of course, there's this idea there's a socialist dictator running Venezuela, and there is a chance of, obviously, external pressure changing the politics in that country. Rather, you can't change the politics in Saudi Arabia.
Well, again, I don't accept that. Relationships are there. And with Saudi Arabia, my feeling is that actually Saudi Arabia is doing the bidding of the imperialist masters. And it's a cosy relationship. So human rights, values do not really come into it. This is about cold interest on the part.
Have more of an influence in Saudi Arabia by making them, obviously, they're our friend and ally. Do we not have influence on their human rights situation there, just briefly?
I'd see no evidence of it. In fact, just with the latest horrific murder of Jamal Khashoggi, we can see that there absolutely is no influence. And what Saudi Arabia gets is a green light to carry on in such a brazen manner. The fact that we've had 125,000 children in Yemen killed, 22 million people on the brink of starvation. This is a man-made situation. And we, sadly, in the West, are complicit in it. And so I will not hear about human rights and values when it comes from the mouthpieces of people who very much are encouraging murder, mayhem, torture in other people's countries.